And good morning. We are moving into our second conversation this morning. We are joined by Minister Rodwell Ferguson, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Transport, as well as Mr. Jermaine Garvey, the Director of International Youth Fellowship, IYF. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, likewise.
You are recently back from the 10th Ministers of Youth World Forum in Busan, Korea. Minister, good morning. Speak to us about your perspective about what you experienced in Korea at this forum.
Well, the first safari was quite an experience. I was always envisioned that the first world country would just be United States of America. But going to South Korea, I see a complete change, a complete difference. And it really opened my mind. I said, man, I think my little country can also accomplish this over a period of time. Unfortunately, our population is very small. Maybe it will be about 500,000. Korea has 45 million people. And so then people work together for their own advancement. And just when I arrived in Korea, just the reception was fantastic. I mean, I never felt that reception anywhere I traveled in the world. And they used the students from the university to receive all their international guests that were coming in. And those students actually pay to be part of that. Maybe in Belize have been the other way around. You have to pay them to participate. And they were very professional. And so it really amazes me. It opened my mind and I said, man, this have to be something Belize have to change to do to accomplish something like this.
So based on your experience and just being immersed in that kind of environment, what are some of the solution strategies that they had talked about at the forum that you think you could bring into Belize and implement it here into our
Well, first of all, they are talking about changing the mindset of the young people. That is the first step. If you can do that, then you can transform a nation. And they gave us two illustrations. One, Samson. The dad used to own a noodle shop. Just simple noodles. And then he educated his son. When his son got the education, he was like, I can now do something that can transform the entire world. And they created Samsung. And today Samsung is one of the biggest electronic company in the world. And so that really, I don't know, amazes me. And then they also give me the illustration of the guy who owned the company Hyundai. The car company. He was a village guy and he went to town to look for a job. He got a job at the port authority to, I guess, do sanitation. And while he was doing that, he envisioned that company. And today one of the biggest companies in the world. I mean, it's amazing, but just the mindset changes. And they don't have no natural resources. So they use their mind to generate for their country. Even they produce finished product in oil, in gas and diesel, but they don't have any natural resources. They purchase the crude oil and then they refine. And so I think if we open our minds, we can do likewise. But I think our biggest dilemma in this country is the population. We have to figure out how we can grow this population. It is too small. And so I have the tax base to generate the income to get certain things done. And as well, Jermaine said, in 1950, there was basically nothing there. They were literally dying from hunger. And they come to a conclusion and say, you know what? I will not let my children endure what I endured. And they change the mindset and they see a complete transformation. So it's amazing.
Well, Mr. Garvey, you were here earlier, I think a couple of weeks ago, talking about the Mind Education Program. So can you explain to us a bit more about what was discussed about that program at the forum and how out of the 25 countries that attended, Belize can benefit from such a forum?
Sure. Since 2010, we've been having this forum in Korea every year. Of course, because when the pandemic started, for about 2 years we didn't have it. But the aim is to gather the ministers of youth and education that can join at that time to discuss this critical thing about changing the mindset education. The ministers who attend this forum, they get a chance firsthand to see what it is doing already in Korea. Like you heard Minister Ferguson talking about He was impressed by these students who greeted. Anyone would think that these students, you have to pay them to do this work, but they pay a camp fee to attend the camp, and then they give the service. That's beyond imagination, right? So we wanted to show the ministers firsthand about how the mindset education program is working, and then for them to collaborate, because you have different ministers from different countries with different situations and circumstances, but same issue, youth problem. So they can collaborate and then see how the mindset education can work in tandem with the already structured programs that they have. And one of the important things is that Minister got a chance to meet with the founder of IYF, Reverend Dr. Oksu Park. And also this gentleman here on the screen, he's the president of the International Mind Education Institute. These are good connections. Because from this it has paved now a stepping stone how Belize can pull the human resources of the IYF worldwide. So what we're looking at now, coming from this forum participation, how we can now get the Mind Education instituted across the entire sectors of Belize.
Minister, speak to us a bit about some of the gaps that we see within the Ministry of Youth and how such a program could be able to alleviate those or lessen those gaps.
I will talk about practically the Ministry of Youth and Sports because there's a combination.
Right.
First of all, the budget is inadequate. I'm trying to reach out to all these youths across the country. What you have is very limited to make sure that make a real impact. I'm going to achieve that opportunity, I think, in January. I say I do my best to figure out how I can improve and change the whole atmosphere. It is difficult, but I think I have good people on board, especially the director, Mr. Kevin Kado, and he's very adamant to make a change. So what he tried to do over a period of time to create training, have them going back to school. There was a graduation, I think 2 weeks ago when I was absent. Unfortunately, 3 of those kids already passed away. One by murder, one by hanging himself, and one by natural causes. And so I noticed there's a vacuum that when you finish working with them with a particular project, then there's no continuation. And so there is no creation for them. And so they left there and they wonder, this is it for me. No opportunities. And I am hoping that I can find a way so that when that relation is over, you can create some of them together, maybe 3 or 4 of them form a little company and be able to provide for themselves and their family. Because after the relation is over, they go back into the same old society.
What do you think is the cause of that reciprocation? So you are, once you're done, right? Once you're done with the project that you have provided for them, how can you then put the Mind Education program into that project that doesn't allow them to go back into the system?
Well, I met Jermaine, I guess maybe less than a month ago, and his wife, and I consider them to be very, very good people. And even though it's not in our curriculum for education, we can start to work with them with the Department of Youth. So I really invited him to meet the director, and I said we can set up a program where you can meet these young people on a regular basis and change their mindset. If you can do that, then it can be a total transformation. Speaking to the young people in Korea, they don't talk about drugs, they don't talk about sex, they don't talk about anything because their mindset has been totally changed. And they want to know, figure out what can they accomplish in life. And the opportunities are there for them in Korea. So when they reach that age and say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, then they come and say, okay, we are going to figure out how we can provide for you. That is what we are lacking in Belize. As the Minister of Youth and Sport, I am very adamant, and on Tuesday I told Cabinet that give me a responsibility, we must come with certain resources to accomplish it. And they recognize that and they understand. So I believe as we progress, you want to see improvement in the Department of Youth and Sport especially. Even though we lack all resources, but we are reaching out to them and trying to curb them and change their mindset. It is difficult because we grew up in a society where we're used to a certain way of life. So it is difficult for us to do it. But if we can concentrate with them and work with them and be able to provide for them after a certain dialogue and certain training, That will be the way to go. So I feel that it can be done. It will take time and effort. And with the whole needs assessment, I understand what is needed. Like for example, hopefully next year, we want to take at least 200 youths to Mountain Ridge. We can have a facility there to keep them there for 2 years and change their whole mindset, let them plant agriculture, create technology and different things. So we have the plan and we are going to implement it as soon as we can.
Mr. Garvey, I want to bring you back into the conversation.
I had to segue.
But certainly, speak to us about how the International Youth Fellowship could be or is providing programs for young people to expand beyond just what one would perceive as being a youth integrated into a space to have discussions about youth. Speak to us about how the Youth Fellowship promotes integration of young people into national development.
Sure. We have a multiplicity of programs that we offer. But as I was listening to the questions being given to Minister about especially the young people's involvement in the decisions, it got me thinking, Minister experiences in Korea. And what was important, of course, we tend to look at economic resources. People, that's what they see. But what people don't see and think is important is the human development. That is what Korea focused on in the 1950s, developing the kind of mind that these people had that can change the economy, can change the country. What IYF is trying to do is to give the young people a certain kind of mind so that when they take their place later in the future as leaders, they can see the country changing, not necessarily relying on the economic resources, but with the little that they have, they can change.
Right.
Minister made mention, Korea has not one drop of natural oil in Korea. But in 2012, they were the #1 exporters of oil. How is that possible? The kind of mind that they had to think, they can sit back, I don't have anything, so we cannot do anything, or they can think a little bit deeper. They import oil, the crude oil, they refine it and then export it.
Right.
So that same kind of mindset is what we want to give to the people. Of course, we want to see the inclusion of the young people. That's important. But inclusion of the young people with the correct kind of mindset. There's a fact, in the educational system, they're only given academia. I learn about accounts, I learn about architecture, I learn about the arts and the sciences. That is it. But how do I take that now with a correct kind of mindset to help my community, to help my country?
Right.
This is what is missing. So even though we talk about mindset education, it's very much undervalued because we cannot see it. But this is the platform that everything else needs to be built on. This is what we, the IYF, want to give to Belize across all sectors, in the educational system, in the youth departments, in the correctional service, in the police forces, in the communities, all across Belize.
You know what?
Certainly, we take this opportunity, Minister, to invite you to talk with us from the Y Lab and to be able to engage more about our involvement in national development and how we would like to partner with
collaborate
as well with the IYF and with government.
We invite you to come back and continue the conversation. We invite you to come back and talk about the mindset program, because I do agree, right, that you have to have a mindset in order to contribute to policy making and development. Thank you both so much for being here this morning. And come back, please, for another segment. And with that, we're going to take another break. And when we get back, Papa Churros, you like elotes? Okay. Stick around. We'll be back with Papa Churros. Stay tuned.